just give a quick introduction about me. The handsome guy that you see over there, that's me. I'm an independent contractor. You can also say it's a freelancer. I currently work as an Android developer for the Calix Institute, which is basically a non-profit organization in the US. I work on something called Calix OS. It's basically an Android distribution focused on privacy and security. During my free time, I also volunteer at XD Developers, which is the world's biggest Android-based forums. I am a senior staff member there. I also handle their developer relations. And I'm also a free open source software developer and contributor for quite some time now. So in this talk, I will mostly go on three main topics: running background tasks in Android, how they happen, how they have been happening, and how they should be happening now as per Google. Then I will quickly give an introduction to the WorkManager library, which has been around for quite some time and is basically now the recommended solution for running your background tasks in Android. And then I will just show a very quick introduction of it in action. So let's go to running background tasks on Android. Um, from quite some time, we were going to say the olden days, or not the golden days of Android. Service is a very simple class, very simple and easy to use. All you need to do is create an instance, file some data, and it will handle whatever task that you want to run in the background. Even if the user closes your app, it will keep running unless you stop it or the user force stops your app. However, there were quite a lot of issues with this. The very biggest one was that it's very simple. There was no need for a notification or a permission. So basically, in old times, if you have something old phone, Android phone, you would have no idea that an app was doing something in the background because there was no need for showing a notification. So unless your developer actually wanted you to know that something is happening with their app in the background, you have no idea. And also, this would also lead to drain in battery life. Because of this stuff, what Google did is that they deprecated it on Android 8.0, and now in case you try to start a background service on Android, it will just crash. But obviously, this is not the case with a system application, so your phone manufacturer can still run background service without any kind of restrictions. But I don't recommend it. It doesn't place well with the Android APIs nowadays. So once Google deprecated the service class, what's the solution now? So what people did is that they moved to something called Foreground Service. Foreground Service has been around for the same time as service, but now it's kind of a de facto way to run your background task. The difference between service and foreground service is that foreground service actually requires developer to show an ongoing notification as long as it is running. In case developer didn't push a notification that something is going on in the background, the Android will force stop the application itself. So, well, this now tells you that something is going on in the app in the background. A very best example is, let's say that you are loading some photos to your friend or making a backup on your Google Drive, OneDrive, so it shows a notification with an ongoing progress bar, right? So that's basically a requirement of foreground service. But what happened is that Google wasn't satisfied with the results. So because the battery drain and all of the issues were still there, then the worst issue was that foreground service could be still started from the background. That user didn't have to open your application. You could still basically start the foreground service. But that defeats the purpose because foreground service should require that user is on your app using it. Otherwise, why are you starting the service and why are you draining the battery? As a result, what Google did is that with Android 12, they blocked, unless you have a special use case, you cannot start a foreground service from background. But it's not gone yet completely. It's still very relevant. A very good example is that a lot of media applications, for example, Spotify, YouTube, or whatever you want to say, or your fitness application, they are still using foreground service and they can keep using it. what Google did is that with Android 14, they introduced a lot of foreground service types. So in case your application falls into one of those categories, you need to request an additional permission, and you need to specify what kind of foreground service you are running in your Android manifest. And it's very useful because when you upload your app on Google Play Store for review, they will basically check if you are actually using it for that purpose or not. And if you're not, basically you will get rejected. Now comes the question of Work Manager. Why do we need it? Work Manager has been around for quite some time, but with Android 14, what Google did is that they officially started recommending that in case you are using Foreground service to do any kind of data sync job, a very good example is uploading images on the internet or downloading apps or whatever you're doing. So Google said that don't use Foreground service for that, use Work Manager library. And with Android 15, they have imposed a 6-hour time limit on data sync services. So if the service has been running for more than 6 hours, Android system will force stop it. Android 15 is, I think, giving more around 2 months, but that's not the worst issue. The issue is that in case now you upload apps on with the data sync service on Play Store and you are targeting the latest SDK, your changes will most likely get rejected unless you use Work Manager library. So, what is Work Manager? Work Manager is that basically the toolkit in your society who copies the best behavior of everything. It's now primarily recommended API, but the reason for that is that Google has been slowly deprecating all the other APIs. The reason Work Manager is very simple, but the reason for that is that it basically uses all the other APIs that are available on Android for background processing behind the scenes. So you don't have to choose what best way to run your task. You just tell Work Manager, I want to do this, and Work Manager will choose the best way to do that in the background. And the fun part is that it's compatible with both Java and Kotlin, considering how Kotlin is now being pushed a lot, but in case your application is still using Java and you're more comfortable with it, you can still use it. And the second fun part is that in case you are maintaining a free open source software and you don't want a dependency on Google Play Services, Work Manager doesn't have any kind of dependency on Google Play Services. Work Manager also allows you to specify multiple constraints to your work. For example, you don't want your job to run. Let's say you don't want to update the applications when user using the device or when the battery is low. So you can do that as well. I will in the further slides show that. Now comes the kind of work that you want to do with the Work Manager. The most simple and I guess I can define it very dumbed down in the way is that there are two types of work, one-time and periodic work. One-time work is basically say you are doing something just for once. An example is like sending an image to your friend by uploading it on the internet. That's a one-time job. You're not going to send it again and again the same image every day. But periodic work is what's going to happen at the same time every day. A good example is, let's say, backing up your data at midnight when your phone is charging and you're not using it. So that's a good time. So Work Manager, that's the two main features, or better to say work type. Now, as we are discussing of migrating from foreground service, these two work type cannot satisfy our requirements because if you remember, foreground services are something that start exactly when you trigger it, right? But Work Manager is not made for starting whatever task you are giving it right now. Work Manager will do it, maybe, sometime later, when it wants or whenever your operating system actually allows it to do the work. In case you want the work to happen right now, let's say that you're uploading an image, you want it to upload right now. So the type of task that you want to use is expedited work. As the name says, expedited work, launch it immediately when you try to trigger it. It requires specifying set expedited method, but it is also heavily limited or scrutinized by the operating system. because of the DOS and app standby quota restrictions. And I can actually explain those to you very easily. DOS is something that when you turn off your, let's say, you're trying to upload something, you turn off your screen, and then you expect the apps to stop doing the job, right? You don't want them to drain the battery when your phone screen is off. That's what DOS is. That's the DOS restriction. But they don't really apply that much to Work Manager. However, app standby quota is something new that Google recently introduced in Android 9.0. Imagine 5 buckets. In those 5 buckets, your operating system will place apps that are used most from 1 to 0. In case you are using social media apps more, let's say Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. So they will be in the first bucket. They will have the most amount of allotable time that can run background tasks. The last bucket will have least amount of time. So let's imagine the first bucket has 3 hours, the last bucket will have 0 minutes to run any kind of background task. In case that your app exceeds this amount of allotted time, let's say that uploading an image takes 1 hour for some reason, but the amount your system allows you to is 10 minutes. So right after 10 minutes, the your operating system will force stop your app and fail it, which means that your task will fail. So this method actually requires, if you want it to work without any kind of issues, you need a very special permission, but using that special permission will make Google Play Store not very happy. It's under a policy, so you need to be very special in case you want to be not restricted by this condition. In case, let's say that you exhaust the quota, or which is allotted to you by the system, you can choose to do this sometime else, or you can choose to just cancel the work. And obviously, the priority tasks which happen every day, same time, cannot be expedited because obviously there is a high chance that you will exhaust whatever time the Android operating system allows you. Now, the second use case is long-running work. That's what foreground service is usually for, because you are doing a very long-running task in the background, right? In case, but Work Manager by default has a time limit of 10 minutes in the background. In case you exceed the 10 minutes, unless you are using a long-running work, Android will again force stop your work. How does this work? This is very funny part because this is where what Work Manager does is that it delegates your long-running work basically back to foreground service in the background. So yeah, they don't want you to use foreground service, but Work Manager actually uses foreground service in the background. To basically create a long-running work, all you need to do is override the get foreground info method, which only requires an ongoing notification for as long as your worker is running. The second one is you need to call set foreground method immediately unless you want your app to crash. The get foreground info method is actually very important because while I was doing migration on one of our app stores, I noticed that get foreground info gets called below on Android 12 in some conditions as well. And unless you specify it, so let's say that you call set foreground immediately when you launch the work. But if you don't call get foreground info, your app will crash immediately again. So the overriding get foreground info is important. And obviously, this is affected by the restrictions that are imposed on the foreground service as well, which means that in case you are creating a long-running work, you cannot start it from the background. To bypass that, obviously, you need a special permission. As I was doing migration on one of the app stores that I maintain, I had to use a special permission because there was no special case otherwise that I could use to trigger a foreground service from the background. Let's see the Work Manager in action. But as I remember, I told you that you can actually limit when your work actually runs in your operating system. Work Manager actually allows you to put several kind of constraints on your work, or basically to say if-else conditions. In case, let's say that you don't want the work to run when you are using your phone, you can specify and you can check the device level activity, and you can specify that I need the device to be idle. in case you don't want to cost user data. So you can specify metered or unmetered as a network type. Google is working to introduce more fine-grained network control, which means that in WorkManager 2.10, you can specify type of network, Wi-Fi, VPN, cellular, Bluetooth, whatever you wish to run the work on. And obviously, it's possible to update the existing constant as well. So in case you have, let's say, created and include a periodic work, you can again update it and remove the constraints in case you have specified something in it previously. Here is a code example. Notice in the second function, the second paragraph, the constraints dot builder method, I have set the required network type to be unmetered because I'm checking for updates, and I don't want to cost user money by checking updates on a metered connection, basically same data. The second I require is I don't want the battery level to be low because I know that the installation of applications might fail and user will get corrupt data or data will get wasted. The third one, which is only can be run on Android 6.0 and above, is that I require the device to be idle, which means the device should be under those conditions. And once I have built the constraint, all I need to do is set those constraints at the last line when I'm building the work. And this is, as you can see, a periodic work, which means that it will keep running every 3 hours, a flexible time of 30 minutes. So every 3 hours, it will check for a new update in case those conditions are specific. Yeah, success. Now, after all this, how do you work? So, well, the work manager, all you need to do to migrate, to do the migration is basically copy paste your logic from foreground service into the work manager's do work method. It's automatically run on a background thread, so you don't need to worry about moving to a background thread or managing those stuff. Work manager will do that for you. It's very easy. And the best part is that it actually returns a result in the end. So you can actually tell users on the UI that what happened with the last work that was happening. If did it fail, did it got success, or did it got a status of retry, so it will automatically check for updates again after a while. Here's again a very small code example of this. This is basically what I'm doing is that I'm deleting all downloaded files from my app store. As you can see, all I do is do work method. I start deleting the file. I don't need to worry about threading here because I know this work is running on a background thread. So I can work with files as much as I want here. I'm deleting the files. Once I have done with whatever conditions I want to do, all I do is I return a success because, yeah, in case I fail to delete the file, it's most likely because the files were not there or I'm not allowed to access those files with a security exception. So I don't need to worry about a failure or a retry. Also, this is a periodic work, so I know that this work will run again after some hours, so I don't need to worry about stuff. Now comes the question of actually getting the data or progress with the work manager. With Foreground Service, it's very easy because it's just a simple class running most likely on the same thread, so you can observe the download progress, for example, with a variable. But Work Manager actually runs on a separate thread, and you don't have a direct access to the worker running your work. So what you can do is that when you want to share some data with your worker, let's say you want to download a file. So how do you pass the URL of the file to the worker? The answer is that you call set input data method. And with that, you can actually specify what kind of data that you want to pass to the work manager, the worker. And when you are in the work manager, you can use the set progress method to actually set the progress, and which can be observed using either a live data or Kotlin flow, whatever you are comfortable with. And this data can be built with a data.builder method. Here is again a very simple code example. You can notice in the very top val input data, all I'm doing is that I'm putting a string of download data. I'm using a JSON library to serialize and deserialize whatever information I want to pass to my worker. But I will recommend to, in case you can, don't try to pass a lot of data to the work manager this way. It will crash on all Android versions because obviously we cannot handle the side of deep serialization and deserialization. And once I have created a data, all I need to do is set input data, and it will be done. So, final thoughts. I do think that Work Manager is a good replacement for Foreground Service. It actually makes job of developers easy to migrate to Foreground Service, and we don't need to worry about threading or running other with a separate specific conditions like checking the internet or device storage level or in case whatever your requirement is, constants make it very easy. However, it's not perfect. When I was doing the migration of the App Store that I maintain, I found that observing the data was quite hard and it was actually slowing down the app when I was doing it using the Work Manager. So I ended up using that SQL database to actually observe the progress of the downloads, which obviously required me to create and maintain another SQL database and observe that with a background service. And finally, well, it's just another yearly migration. Android, honestly, it introduces every new thing, new code, new API, every Android version. So you got to do this migration because if you don't, your apps will get rejected probably from the Google Play Store in a year or two. And that's all. In case you liked my stuff, my talks, you can follow me on Mastodon. It also links my GitHub and my website. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Now, everyone, I think this will be the end of the morning sessions, and we will have group photo sessions at NWT1. So I will invite you all to join us to the group photo sessions downstairs as second floor, fourth floor, sorry. Yes. So like within candidates or is it for anything else? We handle this. Yeah. Can you just go downstairs? Trying to unplug? What? Should I unplug? Yeah.